Hi, I'm Autumn and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a pretty big bookshelf reorganization project. So the shelf behind me is full of most of the books that I own that I have not read. And I've talked about in some of my previous videos that I wanted to clear off this shelf to make room for my Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew collection, which is still at my parents' because I haven't had the shelf space for it. And then beside me is a cart. It's an IKEA cart that a lot of people use for their TBR. I initially bought this as like a nightstand, and I've been using it as like a sort of command station right by my bedroom door for things that I need right as I'm kind of walking out the door. And so I've only been able to use one shelf of it for my most anticipated TBR books. But I recently got a new little end table for right by the door, which has freed up this entire cart to now use for my TBR for my unread books. So the first part of my project is to move all of the unread books from this shelf to this cart. I did test this to see if they would all fit before committing to do this project. And they do, but I put them all back because I wanted to do sort of a before and after of what these shelves look like. And when I did it the first time, I was just testing to see if they would all fit, so I kind of just put the books anywhere. I kind of kept books together, but there wasn't a ton of organization to it, so this time I'm going to try to have it organized to some extent. It's still going to kind of be however it fits. And then the next part will be I'm going to go over to my parents and start moving my Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew collection over here to then organize on this shelf. And I'm going to take you along as I do all of that. So let's get started. Okay, so I have cleared off 4 of these shelves. I'm leaving this sort of middle shelf here that has all of my comics and comic related things on it, because I don't have another shelf that is really the right size for these books. And then if I can, I'm leaving the shelf below it as it's at the right height for right next to my bed, and so I'm using it for as sort of an end table, and it currently is also holding currently reading or immediate TBR books, and so if I have the extra room to spare once I move the collection over here, I'm going to leave the shelf for this purpose. If I end up needing it, I will have to figure something else out. So we are back in my room. I have my whole collection with me. Quick shout out to my mom for helping me move all these boxes. So I'm going to start unpacking these and organizing the shelf. While I'm doing that, I had put out on my Instagram if anyone had any questions related to my collection, my opinions on the books, or any of the adaptions, to submit them. So I'm going to be reading a few responses that I got while I'm doing the organizing and answering all the questions. The first question is from Maria. She asks, what are your thoughts on the obviously amazing Hardy Boys Nancy Drew mystery show from the 70s? So, obviously, I love that show. It was the first adaptation of either Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew that I saw, and it was my favorite for a long time. But the 70s show just holds a lot of nostalgia for me. And like I said, it was my favorite for a long time. And it's kind of cheesy, but kind of every show from that time was, so it's really not a point against it. And middle school me modeled my fashion after the fashion from that show, so, and I feel like it's still kind of influential in my style today, so yeah, it's iconic. I love it. Yeah. Next question is from Luke. He asks, what draws you in the most about these collections? So these series are really what started my love of reading. And so there's a certain amount of just nostalgia for the early part of my childhood that these are kind of from. And I mean, there's still books that I enjoy reading today as well. And not just from my personal experience with them, which, like I said, it's the reason that I'm a reader, but beyond just the stories, like the books themselves have so much history to them. I'm pretty sure my entire collection has been bought secondhand. Some of these are original editions dating back as far as the 30s, so there's so much history to them, not just in the stories and what the stories portray, but in the books themselves. And there's comfort for me in the stories, in like that window to my childhood, and in like the formulaic type of stories that they are, and also, yeah, all the history along with them. Next question is from Vanessa. Which is your favorite and why? So, I prefer the Hardy Boys over Nancy Drew. I started reading Nancy Drew first, and then once I discovered the Hardy Boys, I switched and never really looked back. My favorite of the books in each series is, my favorite Nancy Drew book is The Secret of the Old Clock, because it's one of the ones that has held up really well in rereading them as an adult. And so I continue just to love it each time I read it, even, like I said, as an adult. And then my favorite Hardy Boys book is Hunting for Hidden Gold, and for kind of the same reason, where it's just one that I've come back to over and over again and still love it every time. Okay, next two questions are from Samantha. First, she asks, do you ship Netsky or Fancy? So, do I ship Nancy with Ned Nickerson or Frank Hardy? I definitely have to say with Ned. I like their dynamic as a couple better than I like Nancy and Frank. I also, there's a part of me that doesn't think they should be with someone who is not from their own series. So Frank has to be with Callie, Nancy has to be with Ned. So that's part of it too. But yes, Nancy and Ned, definitely. And then her next question is, what was the first Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys book that you read? So the first Nancy Drew book that I read was The Hidden Staircase, which is the second book in the series, and still one of my favorites. I started listening to the audiobook with my sister and then went on to read it for myself and fell in love with the series. And then the first Hardy Boys book that I read was The Shore Road Mystery, which again is still one of my favorites to this day. Next question is from Leslie. She asks, is Nancy Drew just feminist propaganda teaching women that they don't need to cook or clean? It's a fantastic question. No. Short answer. So Nancy Drew is definitely a feminist. And she is someone who is privileged to have a housekeeper who does a lot of the cooking and the cleaning for her. But that being said, Nancy helps Hannah out a lot when she's at home. And when she travels, which she does quite frequently, her and her friends do a lot of the cooking and the cleaning themselves. So they're neither incapable nor afraid to do the work themselves. So the short answer is Nancy Drew is a feminist icon who says that you can chase whatever bad guys you want after you've done the dishes and put on your lipstick, because whenever she's solving a case, they always manage to take the time to do the dishes and make their beds before they go off searching for more clues. And often them doing the household tasks is what leads them to their next clue. In Secret Little Clock, Nancy gets one of her clues while she's dress shopping. I think Nancy Drew is more feminist, actually, than a lot of modern books, because she's not a strong, independent woman who then has to forego on being feminine. She manages to do both at the same time, and I think that's truly a sign of feminist ideals. And then the last couple of questions are from Claire. She asks, how long did it take for you to collect all of your books? So I started collecting pretty much as soon as I started reading the series. So I was about somewhere between 8 and 10, so averaging out, it's probably been about 15 years that I've been collecting. But especially with the Nancy Drew books, there were several that we already had before I started reading and collecting the series. My sister read them before me. Quite a few of them we got from our aunt. So this collection is really a multi-person, multi-generational collection. And then she also asks, I know they aren't complete collections, but how many do you have left to find? So there's an interesting thing with that, in that there really isn't a definite answer to that. So if I were to just collect the original canon series, I could give a definite answer to that, but that's a lot of math to do right now, so I will put the answer to that in when I edit this video. But beyond that, beyond just the canon series, there are a ton of other series, extensions beyond the original canon. So Nancy Drew goes to 56 books in the original canon. 57 to over 100 is considered like an extension to that. Plus there's other series, the Nancy Drew Files, Girl Detective, Nancy Drew Diaries, and it's the same with the Hardy Boys. Pretty much any time there's been a Nancy Drew readaptation, there's been a Hardy Boys one to go with it. So it is really a never-ending collection in that regard. And honestly, that's part of what makes it fun, is the endless possibilities. So yeah, so there isn't really a definite number I can put to that beyond what is left in the canon series for me to get. much for watching. A special thank you to everyone who submitted questions to the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys soon.